Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment. Guys, you know how I like to do it here is to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, their time. Craig is showing up and he's giving us access to this beautiful commodity, very expensive. If you understand the value of time, it will affect your relationships, how you speak to others, how you relate to yourself, how you deal with things. Time is a precious commodity that keeps ticking and ticking and ticking. And before you know it, 24 hours is gone. So how you utilize that 24 hours, man, and the value of time will tell us a lot about you. The second is the journey. The journey is a powerful created Craig in front of us because it has deposited a couple of things in him that we want to have access to, and he has afforded us that ability to do that. And that is his wisdom, his knowledge, and his insights that he has received from his time through his journey. And so we're honored that he's here to share both. And we want to thank him for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. Craig, thank you so much, man.
Oh, Ken, I really appreciate the invitation. And I appreciate what you say about time because I know how much time it takes to put something like this together. It's not just showing up a minute before an interview, talking, and then you're done. I know it takes hours and hours of preparation and then post work to get this up. So I appreciate your time too in doing this.
Thank you so much, man. I really am glad that you're here because I feel that anytime someone shows up at this desk to have a conversation, there was a demand placed. I don't believe that any and every meeting is just happenstance. I believe it is purposeful. And so, for you who are listening, those that are listening, I welcome you to the podcast. And I pray that you would just allow yourself to relax and get some knowledge and wisdom from this conversation that we're about to embark on so that you can move through whatever pain that you have in your life. Craig, one of the very first questions that I ask anyone that comes here is, how do you serve mankind? Because it's loaded in many ways, but I wanted to pose that to you because I tell people I'm from corporate America, and they talk about our 30-second elevator pitch. Another thing that they tell us is that mission statement, if you will, that guides us, the compass. And so I wanted to ask that question to you as to how do you serve mankind?
Yeah, that's actually a great question that I don't think I've ever really thought about before. It's a humbling question because I think we all want to help in some way. And with the work I do, I was drifting and wandering a lot in my life. And I think it was through my own hurt and pain and finding a way out of that that led me to become a hypnotherapist. And it's with this work of helping other people out of their hurt and pain. And what I like about this work of hypnotherapy, and I know there's a lot of baggage around this word of hypnosis, which is unfortunate because it's a great modality to help people because I don't fix people. And hypnotherapy in of itself doesn't fix people. I show people how to fix themselves. And maybe the way I serve is showing other people their strength and their power and their ability to move out of the hurt and pain that maybe they find themselves stuck in.
Yeah. Hypnotherapy, guys, is a tool just like meditation, just like journaling, just like any other thing that can help you move through your pain. Because of lack of understanding as to what it is and other things that people have attached it to, you can miss the value that it would bring to your life. So stay open, stay curious. You never know that it may hold the key to your freedom. One of the things that we do here is to go back into that time machine that we are afforded access by the memory. And we revisit certain spaces that we live as we are becoming that adult individual, as they say, come in and live on our own. And the very first space that we reside for a few years is in this unit that we are told is called the family. We have mom and dad and some siblings if we have those. And this unit is going to become one of the first position and spaces that will deposit data into you. And they now are going to begin to tell you certain things about your culture, your family history, your religion of your family. All of these programming began at this place called the family home. What was your family like?
My family, we grew up I was born and raised in San Diego, California. It's back in the 60s. It was not the thriving town that people think of it now. It was a pretty newish town, actually, more of a naval town and university town. But it was, I think we tolerated each other as we grew up. I don't think we disliked each other. I don't know that we really enjoyed each other's company so much. I think we kind of just realized we're stuck together and moved through life. It wasn't really any great drama within the house, but I don't know that there was a whole lot of major love either. I think we care for each other, but
Yeah.
I just don't think there's a great interest in being with each other. Sounds maybe a little harsh, but it just, I just think sort of like being in school and there's some classmates you know, and there's that gal in my class, my math class, and you know them, but just you don't want to hang out with them after school. So I think that's kind of the way it was.
And being in that situation, how did it begin to impact your relationship or your perception of relationship to others from the outside of your family?
I think I isolated myself a lot. Definitely very much an introvert in that social situations drain my energy as opposed to fill up my tank. And so I just find being on my own is quite satisfying. And it does get lonely at times, but I think it's just the way I like things to be. I have a beautiful family. I've been married to my amazing wife, Christina. We just celebrated 32 years, and we've been together for
Congratulations,
37.
man.
Thank you. And
Congrats.
we got together when we were 19. We started dating, and I just turned 57 a
Wow.
little bit
Congrats.
ago as we're recording this.
Happy birthday.
And so I enjoy, being with her and being with my son who's 24. But in terms of, just wanting to go to dinner parties and hanging out with other people. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if that's just always the way I was, or that's just the way I kind of grew up. So that's what I'm used to. I enjoy my self time, my
Yeah.
alone time, and again, I think a lot of it has to do with that introvertedness, where just big social engagements drain my energy, and so I don't look forward to them and try to find ways to get out of them if I do find them on my schedule. So I just dislike the who I am, everything. I enjoy who I am. Like anything, there's always, well, maybe this could change or that could change, and I wish maybe I was a little more sociable at times, but yeah, I enjoy life, and things overall are good.
Yeah. I've danced in both worlds where a part of me is social, but most greater part of me like um, uh, like to be in my solitude, if you will, and I have to push myself to move beyond that and get into the social. But once I'm there, it takes a while for me to get into it. I usually am in the background, and then if someone engage in a conversation, I like deep conversation. So if someone starts that type of conversation, then it's good. Other than that, I just don't like just superficial stuff. So here you are, man. How did that relate in high school? Because of all the places where one would want to be, that conflict of interaction and being by oneself is really played out there on a daily basis. How did you manage that part of your life? being that type of personality?
Yeah, that was a bit of an oddball situation. I grew up in the Episcopal Church, and I think just because that was the church that was down the street from us,
Hmm.
it was about 5 blocks away. We could walk to it in about 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm sure if it was a Methodist church or a Lutheran church, we would have been Lutheran or Methodist. But it was the Episcopal Church, and that's the church we went to. But starting in the 6th grade, all the way to 12th grade, when I graduated high school, I went to a Baptist run school. And so all my friends were, lived around my house and were a part of the church. There was a high school that was right next door to the church. That probably was a high school I was destined to go to just because it's down the street. And so all my friends I met through the church youth group stuff that was going on. But then I started going to this Baptist run school starting in 6th grade, then junior high, 7th and 8th, and then 9th through 12th was a Christian high school in El Cajon, California. And so I had this kind of weird dual life because those are two, even though they're Christian organizations, they have some opposing viewpoints
Yeah.
and they butt heads a lot in terms of their theology and the way they run things. And so I was in this kind of, stepping in two worlds, it felt like at times, in that, Monday through Friday, I was at this Baptist run school, which at least one class a day was a Bible class. And when we had the assembly once a week called chapel, in which, I don't know, we sang and heard talks and things like that. And so that was very much ingrained, and we oftentimes prayed before class and things like that. But then in the evenings and certainly on weekends, I was hanging out with my youth group friends from the Episcopal Church, and those were my real friends because I lived near there. I had to travel about 45 minutes to go to this Christian school and high school in El Cajon, away from my house in San Diego. And so it was hard to just hang out with kids who lived 45 minutes away back in the day,
Yeah.
back in the 70s and, well, I guess the 80s mainly. So all my friends lived close to me, but they went to the church. So I had this kind of dual life, it felt like. But the big issue around that then was my friends were a year older than me. I was a junior in high school, they were senior in high school. And so they all graduated and then kind of dispersed
Hmm.
as people do when they graduate high school and go off to college or jobs or move away. And so then I kind of found myself without that foundational friendships, and during my last year in school. And so I again drifted a bit, wandered a bit. Did of course have friends at school I went to, and I was driving at that point. It was a little easier to maintain friendships, but I don't think they were as close as I had before that. And other than meeting Christina, who then we married some years later, I don't think I've really had as close of friendships as I did since high school. Strangely enough, certainly know people and
Yeah.
go to
Yeah.
dinner parties and things. But in terms of having those close friendships, I think I met Christina. Just we had a wonderful connection, a strong connection, and I was like, okay, well, I guess that's what I need, and never really looked outside of
Look
that
back.
for deeper
Yeah.
friendships, I guess.
Yeah. And as you move through life and you're heading in, you met your wife, and you guys are heading out via college and stuff like that. Where did you go? Which direction? Did you take the college route or did you go to the work route? And why did you pick that route that you went?
Did the college route, but mainly just to follow Christina. I applied to a few schools and applied to UC Santa Cruz, University of California, Santa Cruz, and mainly just because she did as well. And we both got in. She really wanted to go to Santa Cruz just because it's a beautiful campus, a beautiful, beautiful town right there by the ocean. It's 10 minutes to the beautiful redwood forest. It's 5 minutes to the ocean. And so it was a beautiful town. And I mainly just went to follow her. And I was studying music. And I did that for a couple semesters. I just really liked it. We were a bit older when we went to college. I think we were like 21 or 22 or so by the time we made it to UC Santa Cruz. And I just didn't, everybody else is 18 and 19, and I don't know. I just felt I didn't belong. And so the question is, like, I kind of did both. I started the university route, didn't really care for it. Noticed I was just spending tons of money on this education that I just was scratching my head on why I was doing it. And so I then went into the work world, mainly to start paying off my education debt before it got too out of hand, and just found myself, kind of working until it's one day I struggled a lot with depression and anxiety in my teenage years. And
Craig, where did you pick that up from? Where did you pick
I'm
because
sure
when the
well,
genesis of it? Yeah.
there's a whole lot of, in terms of the research behind how one gets depression and anxiety. One, you can mirror it, just what's going on in the house.
Yeah.
You just mirror what's going on. You learn it. The other thing, it could be a genetic thing, and then it gets triggered somehow.
Hmm.
My mom struggled with depression, and for a really long time, I'm sure that didn't help me in any way. If it either I was marrying it from her, or it's a genetic thing, and I got it from her, and it got triggered in my teenage years. For my 50th birthday, after kind of dealing with this depression and anxiety, for my 50th birthday, I got diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder. And that's different than bipolar 1. Bipolar 1 is that one you hear about in the news where people are either like super depressed or they go super manic and they're super elated and blissful and happy, but they're spending all their money and they mortgage their home in Las Vegas to pay off their gambling debts to the mob, and then buy a Lamborghini and drive off to Montana. It's like that's that manic aspect of that widens their eyes. Like, my God, that's incredible. And then they end up robbing a bank and all that stuff. It's like they go off the deep end in both ways. Like, not only they get super depressed, but then they get the super manic and just everything's blissful and happy and elation, and they have affairs with everybody they run into. So, but that's bipolar 1. Bipolar 2 is that, yeah, you get the depression side of but the manic part shows up as anxiety. And so instead of depression and happiness and elation and bliss, you get depression and anxiety. And so after, I don't know, whatever that was, 25, 30 years of dealing with it, finally got diagnosed as this bipolar 2, which is nice because at least, you kind of know what you're dealing
You
with
know what you're
finally.
dealing. Yeah. Yeah.
But, I grew up in the 70s and 80s. I was born in 1967, so I was in high school in the 80s, and they don't have medications back in. I mean, they had some for the super serious psychoses back then, schizophrenia and things like that. But those selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRI drugs like Prozac and things, those didn't come out till the 90s, mid 90s, late 90s. And so in the 80s, there wasn't a whole lot you could do about depression other than just try to self-soothe in whatever way you found, whether that, some people picked alcohol or pills or smoking cigarettes or whatever it was. I don't know. I think I just managed it through trying to get through life. And, I certainly enjoyed music, playing music, listening to music, going to concerts. That might have been my way out of dealing with it. It was basically talk therapy and whatever book you could find at the bookstore or at the library. And in the 90s, when we lived in Santa Cruz, I think there was enough distractions at times to keep it at bay. But it was there. It's always that malaise that is there. It's like
Yeah.
wearing a
Yeah.
coat. It's not,
Yeah.
and after a while, you wear this coat so often, you just think that's who you are. And it was really around 1999, we started thinking about having a family and what we're, how that was going to work, because we realized we really couldn't afford to live in Santa Cruz anymore. It was getting so expensive there. And so we decided to move to Flagstaff, Arizona, because it was close enough to San Diego. We could drive. It's a small, beautiful town in the forest. We're up here in the mountains, live in the snow in the wintertime, beautiful summers. But it's close enough drive to San Diego that, we wouldn't have to fly or take multiple days to drive across the country to visit, our parents.
Yeah.
And so when we were thinking about having a family, it's like, okay, I got to get my life together, because if this is a modeling thing, like I modeled it off my mother, mirrored it from my mother, or it's a genetic thing, well, my son's in a bit of a pickle then. And so, and so when we decided to have a family and my wife got pregnant, we were going to have our son, I said, okay, I got to get my life together. And it took a bit, and then I got 9 months to get my life together and figure it out. And of course, while, when they're a baby, so mom's doing a lot of the nurturing and caring there. I'm an important part of that, but I got another year or so to get my life together. And it seemed to take a while, but I started just at that point. The internet's out. This is 2000, 2001. The internet's out. There's lots more books, a lot more information. And I started just using these techniques I was learning about and exercises and practicing. And like anything, the more you practice something, the better you get at it. So I woke up one morning and kind of looked around at my life. I was like, God, it's been a long time since I felt anxious or depressed.
Wow.
And I felt really good. And it's
What,
not that, there's still challenges of life. There's work and
yeah.
a small child and trying to figure out how to move through life. But I didn't have that heaviness anymore. And I was kind of telling people about it, some people I knew, and I ended up writing a book. I heard about a writing contest from Hay House Publishing House, and so I joined this writing contest, and my chapters did very well. I was literally writing the book month by month. I'm sure some of the people already had their book written; they were just submitting chapters. But I was just like, I don't know how to write a book, and I wrote a book, and it was one of those things where they start off with like, I don't know, 500 people joined this contest, and then the next month it's down to 250, and then the next month it's down to 100, and over 4 or 5 months they whittle it down to like 10 people. And according to the person I was talking with who was running the contest, I came in a close second with my book on depression called Depression 180, and which was very thrilling to have even made it that far. And I got invited to be because of that, like us in the top 20 or so, we got invited to submit a chapter, not from our book, but just submit a chapter to a book called 30 Pearls of Wisdom that had some of their other famous authors in it, like Jack Canfield and other people. And, do that. Then like, okay, now we got to do some publicity. And I did a telesummit on no, not hypnotherapy, on depression, talking to a lot of different people about depression. And then that led to doing my own podcast called Tipping Point Radio, interviewing a lot of wonderful, amazing people like Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza, Marianne Williamson. And I was having fun. I mean, I wasn't filling up the bank account with any of this, but I was having fun and I was enjoying what I was doing. And then I had the opportunity because what really fascinated me and one of the things that really helped me was this hypnotherapy. And it was always in the back of my mind. I was like, God, that's something I'd really like to do. Help people in that way because it helped me so much. And that was one of the tools I used to help me with my issues. And so I got the opportunity to train at the Hypnotherapy Academy of America, which is a real school that you go to in Albuquerque. A lot of people just do kind of video training, which is unfortunate. So you really got to be careful about who you're working with and what their training is. I went to this great school, and it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's really immersive, and it's 2.5 months, 500 hours of just training in hypnotherapy. And so I went to the school, and then I just I kind of had to put a lot of the other stuff behind. The kind of books had been writing and the podcast and things like that, had to make the choice and make the big decision. So okay, I want to just focus on hypnotherapy, and so I had to put those other things aside and just since then, for the last whatever it's been 7-8 years, I've been doing hypnotherapy and working with people. And like I say, what's fascinating about it is the ability to show people how they can fix themselves. And again, not that I'm fixing anybody, but it's that you can fix yourself. You have the power to do that. And whether you've been holding on to hurt, whether it happened yesterday or last week or last month or 40 years ago, you can let it go. And it's extraordinary to watch people come in who have been in pain for a really long time and watch them kind of transform and metamorphosize, that's a word,
Yeah.
to this new person.
Yeah, that's a
or I don't know,
privilege.
maybe they're not a new person. Maybe they're just taking off the heavy overcoat, that they've been wearing and that they think was actually them. It's like, no, just drop the coat and be
Yeah,
done with it.
that's a privileged position to be in, though, correct. But what a story you just laid out to us. Here's this guy that made a decision based on the fact that his family is coming in and expanding, that he needs to get some help, and opened up a whole world from you doing that, able to write a book, able to start a podcast, meet some extraordinary people and stuff like that, all because you made a decision like, I need to get my life together and find out this situation about this depression. You had mentioned that some of the tools that you started doing some research on the internet being young. I remember the internet being young. Everything was available in long form, if you will, at the time. What were some of those tools? Because you mentioned one that you gravitated to, the hypnotherapy piece, but there are other tools. And what other tools did you bring in along with the hypnotherapy?
Yeah. One of the best tools that you can use for depression is exercise. And it's unfortunate in our lifestyle, and maybe it's a Western culture thing, maybe it's just a United States culture thing, but we seem to sit a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We get up in the morning, out of bed and sit down for breakfast. Then we go sit in our cars to drive to work, where we sit at a desk. Then we drive home to sit for dinner, to sit in front of the TV, and we go to
Yeah.
bed. And study after study, research paper after research paper, journal article after journal article, hundreds of them over the course of the last decades, show that exercise works as well as medication in dealing with depression. And so, one, just moving your body, and however that, and notice you don't. I'm not saying you have to go to the gym and pump weight or do that. Do something that you enjoy, and if that's just walking out in nature or around your city, or if maybe that's joining a gym or joining an exercise class or learning dance, going to a dance class, if that's fascinating, or riding your bicycle, whether it's a stationary bike, watching your favorite TV show, or riding your bike out in nature or around your city. But you got to find a way to move your body every day. And again, I'm not saying you have to be in the gym 2 hours a day, but find a way to move your body. Again, whether that's just walking around your block, or finding a group of friends you can walk around with at lunchtime, or again, finding that dance class or whatever it is. Just doing some jumping jacks. There's a lot of apps you can get, free apps of just like, here's a 20-minute exercise routine you can do at
Mm-hmm.
home without any equipment or weights. And so exercise is huge. Of course, diet is a big part of it. A lot of depression and anxiety can come from low blood sugar issues, especially if you're noticing your depression and anxiety is always in the late afternoon. I'm feeling really anxious or depressed. Maybe it's your food intake. Maybe you're not eating enough, or maybe what you're eating is not nurturing your body. I'm not a nutritionalist. I can't tell people what they should be eating. It's like my mother is 85 years old, 5'1", and maybe, I don't know, 130 pounds. My son is 24 years old, 6'3", and 250 pounds. They're going to need two different diets. And so, if you're feeling that maybe you're not getting the nutrition you need in the way that your body needs it, you certainly go to see your doctor, or see a professional nutritionalist about that, and to get blood work and all that nonsense. But that's a huge one. Just one, drinking enough water, getting your food intake, it will do wonders for your energy, for your health, and for that malaise. Even things like coffee. Too much coffee
Mm-hmm.
it's a stimulant. It can cause anxiety. So again, watching, and people who are coffee drinkers know that if you drink one cup of coffee, you get that boost, you get that energy. You drink three or four, then you get really wigged out and wired. So,
Yeah.
if coffee is not your thing, watch out for that. I just had a health scare because I was drinking yerba mate. It's this tea from South America, Argentina, Brazil, and things. But it was messing up my liver. I was
Wow.
having liver problems and couldn't figure out. And finally, I found another article online. One negative article about yerba mate is, this one person in Argentina, American kid, had liver problems, and it seemed to be his yerba mate because he wasn't doing drugs, he wasn't doing alcohol. Anyway, so watch what you're eating and drinking. That's all. That's what that was all about. Even like alcohol, it's hard to pin it down sometimes. Like you look at red wine, and red wine, a lot of studies, a lot of research shows, it has antioxidants, good for the heart. Glass of red wine with dinner is great, but then it can also create histamine in the body. And some people have allergic reaction to histamine. And the main side effect of histamine allergen is anxiety and insomnia.
Wow.
And so is red wine good for you or not? So you really got to watch that kind of stuff, food intake, how you're fueling your body. Just like you want to take care of your car, and put in the right, fuel for your car, you need to do that for your body too. There's supplements you can take, all sorts. Again, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to tell people what they need to take. You should do your own research about that. But there's a lot of different supplements like L-theanine and 5-HTP and things like this that you can find at your health food store if they have a vitamin section. Again, do your own research about that kind of stuff. Supplements for depression and anxiety. Those are just a handful of ones, that kind of the simple ones that you could do today. You can go out and exercise. You can look at your diet. You can see how much water you're drinking. You can maybe do a little bit of research about supplements and things. Some of the books that I was reading, one great one, or a series of books, Dr. Daniel Amen. His last name is just like what you say at the end of a prayer, Amen. A-E-N, Dr. Daniel Amen. Extraordinary neuroscientist. And in America, he has a lot of clinics around the country now that for brain health, you get your brain imaged and you can see what parts of your brain are working well and maybe that need some help with ADHD or depression or anxiety. But he has a lot of books over the last 20 years or so about brain health and dealing with anxiety and depression and ADHD and Alzheimer's and memory and things like that. I'd highly recommend people look up his books if you feel like you're struggling with a certain issue. And again, these are the things that you can find this guy's books in the library. You can do the research on nutrition on your own. You can exercise without spending any money. And so these are the kind of things that maybe the outlier things, as opposed to maybe seeing a professional talk therapist or something like that. Certainly that's helpful. Talk therapy, it's always great to have a second pair of eyes on something.
Mm-hmm.
If you're dealing with an issue at work or in your relationships and family. But again, one thing that really helped me deal with a lot of the hurt and pain I was struggling with was hypnotherapy and
Craig,
finding
talk about
that relief within myself.
Talk about that, because that's important. That's the one that you gravitated to. And when one gravitates to that, whatever modality you want to go after, whatever tool you want to go to, once you gravitate to, because there's something about it for you that is pulling you that route. What was it that was for you that you saw in it that said, this is the route that I wanted to go?
I was attracted to it because so many books and so many articles mentioned it. And so I was reading a lot of self-help books. I was reading a lot of personal development books, a lot of Tony Robbins, whatever I could get my hands on at the library or the bookstore. Voracious in my reading of that stuff. And usually at the end of the book or somewhere in the book, they say, here are the 5 things you can do to change your mindset or to change your life, or the 10 things you can do. And whether it was an article in a magazine or an article, a blog post online, or a book I was reading, you always had that bullet point list or that top 5 list. And usually everything was different except one thing. They always mentioned hypnotherapy. That was always one of the things that everybody across the board, no matter who it was always mentioning. You gotta try hypnotherapy. And unfortunately, just because of movies and TV, it has a kind of a bad reputation that people are going to make you do things and be silly and reveal deep, dark secrets. And that's not what hypnotherapy is. It's just a way for movies and TV to move a plot point forward and to get the movie chugging along. How are you going to get Jason Bourne to assassinate the prime minister? Oh, let's hypnotize him. And it's like, that's not the way it works. Or they've seen a show in Las Vegas or Atlantic City or New York or something, comedy club, and it's a hypnotist show. And all these people go up on stage and they start, singing like Elvis Presley and dancing like Michael Jackson and imitating Beyonce and pretending they're on a roller coaster and all these silly things. And I was like, I don't want to go to hypnotherapy and do that. And it's like, well, no, you're not going to do that because that's not what it's about. The people who go up there and do those shows volunteer to go up and do those shows. They want to do that. Why? I don't know. They're exhibitionists. They're extroverts. They want to have a funny video to put on Instagram or TikTok. They want to look silly in front of their friends and have a good laugh. And they do. They have a great time. But understand that they bought a ticket to the show, sat down in their seat when the hypnotist comes out and they say, hey, who wants to welcome to the show and who wants to come up on stage and have a great time and be a part of the show? A bunch of people raised their hands.
Yeah.
He's not going to, the hypnotist is not going to pick the people not raising their hands who don't want to be up there. That's not going to make for a good show. They're going to pick the people who are excited and show enthusiasm for wanting to be up on stage and act silly. They know why they're there. And so he picks 10, 12 people and, they sit down in the chairs and he goes on, what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? And do you want to go into hypnosis and have a great time? Yeah, I do. They say yes, like 7 times before this guy makes them dance like Michael Jackson or sing like Elvis or whatever the deal is. And so it goes to figure, though, if you want to go up on stage and act silly and you do, what are the chances if you want to heal that you're going to heal? And that's what we do in therapeutic hypnosis. That's entertainment hypnosis. In therapeutic hypnosis, hypnotherapy, we use the power of your subconscious mind to heal. And again, what's extraordinary about this work is you know what the problem is. And that's what's so powerful. Even if it's unconscious, it's like, well, I don't know what the problem is. I'm just anxious and depressed and angry all the time. It's like, well, your subconscious mind knows why you're angry. It's creating the chemistry within your brain to create that feeling state of anger and rage or anxiety or whatever the issue is. It knows why it's doing that. It's being triggered for some reason in your external environment. Something in your external environment, whether somebody was in a car accident when they were 12 years old and now at 50 years old, they see a red pickup truck parked on the side of the road and they get really super anxious and they don't know why. It was a clear drive. It was a perfect drive. They don't know why they're all stressed by the time they get home. Well, it's like, they were in this horrible car accident with a red pickup truck when they're 12, and now their peripheral vision, they saw a red pickup truck in a parking lot. Or, you're at work and there's an argument in the office next door about some accounting problem. And that triggers you because your parents argued when you're a child, and hearing those raised voices and those angry voices triggers you to feeling, you don't know why. I don't know why I'm so anxious today. I'm uptight. It's like your subconscious mind knows, because what it's trying to do is warn you with those feeling states of depression and anxiety and anger and overwhelm and worry. It's trying to warn you that there's danger. Someone pulls the fire alarm in a building, the sirens go off, the strobe lights go off, warning everybody that there's danger and you need to get to safety right now. Your warning system in your body is the feeling states. And to get that feeling state of anger, the feeling state of anxiety, you have to change the brain chemistry. You have to start creating the hormones of adrenaline and cortisol, these molecules called neuropeptides. And these molecules, hundreds of millions of these molecules being dumped into your bloodstream, move through your body to connect to cells in your body to turn on the fight or flight stress response to give you that feeling of anxiety. These are literal molecules of fear, molecules of anxiety, molecules of anger. And the only way to change your brain chemistry in that way that we're talking about is through a thought or accessing a memory, even if it's unconscious. You know why you're creating that feeling state, even if it's not conscious. Your unconscious mind knows why it's doing it. It knows why it's being triggered. You know what the problem is. And more importantly, you know what the answer is. You know what to do about it. It's just computer code. Nobody's entered in the code to fix it. And so it's not unlike if you're writing an accounting program, Ken, let's say you're writing an accounting program for your business and you accidentally put in there 2 + 2 = 5. That's the equation you're going to get out. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much you type on your keyboard or slam your keyboard with your fist or out of frustration or vent to your friends about how unfair it is that 2 + 2 = 5 or talk to a counselor. or and write in 2 + 2 = 4 on your computer screen. It's not until you go into that code, you look through all those lines of code, it's like, oh, there it is. That's weird. Why did I do that? 2 + 2 = 5. Huh. Well, you erase it, you amend it, you edit it, whatever, delete it. And then you write in 2 + 2 = 4, you press save. Now your equations equal out. And that's what you can do with your subconscious mind. It's your subconscious mind. And you're the one putting the instructions in, even if it's through a trauma or something that's caused fear or terror or anger or rage or embarrassment, humiliation. You're the one who has put in the instructions on how to keep yourself safe. You may have been a child when you did that. And maybe the way to keep yourself safe was to hide and make yourself small. And that was the best thing you could have done as a child to keep yourself safe, but not when you're an adult. But you haven't changed the instructions yet. And maybe you entered those instructions, but you're the one who entered them. And that's not to say it's your fault. It's not to say to blame you or say it was fair or should have happened, and not to blame the victim. But you're the one who put those instructions in, and that becomes very empowering, because if you're the one who put them in, that means you're the one who can take them out.
Yeah.
You're the one who
Absolutely.
can change them. And that's that when I was saying a little while ago, I don't fix people. Hypnotherapy in and of itself doesn't fix people. You fix yourself. Because again, you know what the problem is, and more importantly, you know what the answer is. And that's why this doesn't take months and years of work to do. Generally I tell people, and what I've seen other hypnotherapists when they work with people is like, yeah, let's think about 3 or 4 sessions, and yeah, maybe more, but maybe less. But we're not going to be doing 90, 100 sessions over the course of 2 years talking about a problem only to find out that wasn't really the problem that needed to be worked on. So let's do another year's worth of digging around. It's like, you know what the problem is. And sometimes it's just as easy to follow that feeling state back to what caught the thought or memory that's creating it.
Yeah, the genesis of it. And that's what I tell people. And I hope you guys that are listening to us, and I always invite my people, Craig, to learn to transition from listening just to hear to begin to hear. Because when you hear it, it elicits a response from you. And if you're listening, you can miss it. But when you heard it, you'll hear that people will make that statement, about hearing and listening. I'm listening, or I heard you. There's a difference. And so if you heard what he said, is that you put it there. Once they identify and they're going on based on your emotional stamp, the emotional stamp that you put there in order to survive that trauma that was served up to you. And when they traced it, just like any program, they will come to the root, and then they're able to make the adjustment. It's the express elevator. I know I've said it to people before. I know there are a couple of ways, and I always tell them, Craig, find the tool that will help you to get to where you need to be to get your stuff done. Don't allow people's opinion of the tool, what you heard about it. Get into your space, do your research so that you can see exactly, because it is important that you come to a place where where you say, that's the one I want. When you do that, you have then released certain chemicals within your brain that when you sit down before Craig, you're not going to resist. You're going to, because why? You said, that's the one I want. Just like the one on the stage with the entertainment hypnosis. He or she asked this individual several times, is this what you want? Because they're engaging that will. And when they engage that will, then it's easy for them to do what they want. But Craig is talking about a different type of therapist, hypnosis. And that's a very specific, the clinical piece, the part that is there to address that situation. It works, guys. I know it works. I've seen it work before. And I invite you guys to, I'm going to provide everything for you to have access. I really want you to move through your situation fast. As he said, it's only a couple of sessions that you need, where you have to go in someplace 90 and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and months, and then find out that you're on the wrong path. So we're going to provide everything because it's important Do your research. It will get away all and take away all the apprehension and all of the second guessing, because you're coming there because you need something done and you need it done as quickly as possible. So, Craig, here you are, man. You are in this space that you get a chance to witness that. And it is a beautiful transition as you get to see when you are there with someone who's in pain, comes in pain, and they're leaving maybe after the first or second episode that they're there with you, free as a bird, man, as they say, a free bird. Now that you've seen this transition, you've seen the results, talk to us, give us an example for those that are still there listening to us as to one of those precious moments when an individual came in. What was their condition? What happened as you walk them through?
Yeah, there's a extraordinary story that I like to tell people because it really shows the power of this work. And a few years ago, I was teaching some classes over Zoom for the cancer support community of Arizona. And these were online classes, video classes over Zoom. And, over the course of a few months, we were doing classes on pain control and healing acceleration and immune system boosting, that kind of thing. And you get 12, 15 people at these classes once a week. And there, when we started, there was a older woman in the class. I'm guessing she was about 70 years old. And she was at the first two classes. And on the third class, I'm setting up I'm early to the class because I'm setting up the Zoom room and getting everything organized. And she was early to the class. And so we're just chit-chatting, waiting for other people to show up and start class. And she asked me if hypnotherapy can help with procrastination. And yeah, procrastination is a mindset issue. It's a defense mechanism. Certainly when there's a safety issue, you're in danger, you want to move away from something. If there's fire, there's a rattlesnake in the trail, if you're out in the desert, if there's a fight in the street or cafe or restaurant or something, you want to move away from it, make yourself smaller. That's a great defense mechanism. But when it becomes unresourceful, now you're moving away from something that maybe is beneficial to you. Your fear of failure, fear of being judged, something is causing you to move away from something that maybe will get you that promotion or get you that good grade in school because you finished the report and turned it in, whatever. So procrastination can be helped with hypnotherapy. And so we set up an appointment for the very next day. I had an afternoon appointment. We're going to do this over Zoom. I do probably, since the COVID era, I probably do 85% of my sessions are over Zoom. I work with people around the world. I mean, look at this. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona. You're in Thailand. We can work around the world. And so the 24 hours later, she shows up for the appointment. What's interesting about this work is when you realize that you're going to a healing session, you're going to start this work. The brain starts kind of turning its gears and your mind starts saying, well, we can work on a problem. Well, why not work on the problem? And so when she got to the session the very next day, 24 hours later, she says, I know I told you I wanted to work on procrastination, but what I really want to work on is why I don't matter in life. Now, this is a 70-year-old woman who thinks she doesn't matter in life. And so I said, sure, let's absolutely work on that. And there's a feeling state to that. Well, I was just saying, there's a feeling state to that that's created by a thought or an emotion, changing the brain chemistry to create that feeling. So there's a tether, there's a connection. So let's follow that feeling state back. So we're doing some works and processes, relaxing the mind, the body. And we get to a point where let's do this regression. Let's find out what the original issue is and heal it. And so I do this countdown, 10 down to 1. On 1, you'll be at that where you created this feeling of not mattering in life. And so 10 down to 1. On 1, where are you? And she says, I'm standing up in my crib and my father's screaming at me because I won't stop crying. Now, if this is a 70-year-old woman, I'm figuring that's maybe late 1950s, early 1960s, something like that. And men maybe aren't taught to be the most nurturing of people, especially to small children. And maybe dad's having a bad day, a bad week, a bad life. Mom's out of the house and the baby won't stop crying and he doesn't know what to do. And he finally reaches his breaking point. And the only thing he can figure out to do is to scream louder than the baby and tell the baby to shut up. And in that moment, the child, just like all of us, we have to justify why this is happening. We have to come up with some sort of reasoning behind what is going on, this trauma that is happening. And her mind, in that 1-year-old or 12-month-old, 14-month-old mind of hers, she thinks, well, the only reason this person who's supposed to be nurturing me and loving towards me and protecting me, the only reason this person is screaming at me and yelling at me is because I don't matter in life. It doesn't matter if it was true or not true. That's the instructions she put in her subconscious mind. That's the coat she decided to wear. And she held on to that for 70 years. It doesn't matter that it wasn't true. Of course she matters in life. You would never tell a small child they don't matter in life. Of course they matter in life. But that's the reasoning, the only reasoning she could come up with to justify what was happening. Well, I guess I just don't matter. If this person who's supposed to protect me and nurture me is screaming at me, I guess I don't matter. And she held on to that for some 70 years until one day she decided it was time to let it go. And she did. She let it go. And that was the last session we did together. And she would email me for about a year or so afterwards, every few months or so. I'm doing great. I'm doing fabulous. It's so amazing, this work. And she did basically two or three group sessions that had nothing to do with the issue she needed to work on, pain control, healing acceleration, through this cancer support community class. And then she did one session on the issue she needed that she needed to work on. She had kind of primed her nervous system with the classes, learned to move into that relaxed state of mind and body, to quiet down that conscious level of mind and access the subconscious. She knew what the problem was. And more importantly, she knew what the answer was. She knew what to do to heal the child. And she did. I helped facilitate that, but she was the one doing the work. Because again, how long was it going to take in talk therapy for her to get all the way back to being 12 months old, 14 months old, standing up in the crib?
Yeah.
And so she did it basically within a session or two, And that's the power of this work. Again, doesn't take 80, 90, 100 sessions over 2 years. Unfortunately, because of a lot of the baggage the word hypnosis comes with, people use it as a last resort. They try everything else. And then it's like, well, the only thing left to try is hypnotherapy. I guess I'll try that. And we do some deep healing work when they show up. It's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah. Greg, thank you so much for sharing that. And all of you guys that heard that, you may be in your last stage, you may be desperate. That's okay. Just come. You may be, this is it. If you don't do this, you're going to do that. Just come, man. We're going to provide all of the links for you guys to get to him. I had him tell that story because I wanted you guys to see that this is life-changing work. If you want to change your life and do it in a fashion that is not going to take you a pretty long time, you have access to Craig. I'm going to give you all of his data and all of his stuff, man. So, Craig, I want to thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. This has been a pretty good one, man.
Yeah, well, Ken, I appreciate the invitation. It's been a fun conversation. Been doing a lot of podcasts over the last few months, talking about this work, and this has been one of the funnest conversations I've had. I appreciate all your questions, and they're pretty deep questions, and I appreciate you asking them.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.